This one's for the culture. Me and wifey in the room thinking of a master plan, thinking how we can influence the culture from where we stand. Knowing that our steps are ordered by the master's hand, still 10 toes down, we ain't switching up the stance. The mission of this music ain't just to make them dance, trying to tell them about the rock.
Hey, everybody, it is The Bond Chronicles. We are here with episode 14. Excited about the things we're going to get into today as a black man and a black woman. We're going to get into some current events, some, tough topics, but also some things that are engaging. So appreciate you guys listening in. I am Mr. Raymond on Twitter and Mr. Bond Chronicles on Instagram, and I am here with my host.
This is Bond Chronicles on Instagram, Ms. Bond Chronicles on Twitter.
Still haven't got it yet. If you've been with us for a while, this is a crapshoot every time. But yeah, we are excited. We want to first say thank you to everyone. Our first time, middle time, last time.
Hopefully not last time.
I mean, it happens. We're going to talk about some stuff. Some people might, feel a certain type of way.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, basically. But definitely like, share, and subscribe. We appreciate all the support. The Facebook group is running up. The Instagram followers, we've hit triple digits. Views are consistent each and every week on a variety of platforms. So shout out to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor listeners, and to those of you who are watching us on YouTube, thank you very much as well. And last but certainly not least,
the EV Radio fam.
Yes, our Orlando, Florida internet radio station. The next iHeart is what they say they are, and we are on board with it. So I think I got all of those out the way. Anybody else we need to shout out?
Not today.
Well, shout out to all of, and I want to make sure I get this right, the veterans for Memorial Day. Do you shout out?
I mean, veterans, yes, but it's more so
is it for active?
People who lost their lives.
Okay. So definitely thank you very much to our men and women in service who have given their lives for our freedoms in this country. We can't thank you enough. To the families that have been impacted by it, obviously our prayers and support go to you. We understand that it can't be easy, but you guys get through it each and every day. So thank you so much.
For sure.
We definitely appreciate. My dad served in the Marine Corps.
A bunch of my family did too. Don't ask me what branch or anything. I just know most of them did. I got a couple cousins that have done Air Force, Army, so I think we've touched on really all branches. My guy, Cordell, who's in the Navy, has been at sea for forever. Hopefully you get back soon. Yeah. Well, okay, so Veterans Day, because like I said, Veterans Day is for people who, like everybody, served, whether you're living or you passed away. Memorial Day is specifically to remember those who passed away during active duty.
Gotcha. So definitely, again, shout out to you all that have given your lives, and hopefully we will get to meet again. You'll meet your families again, God willing. So not the best transition that we have here, but I guess I'll start with a brief, I guess a decent segue. So one thing we have said that we would talk about, and we haven't talked about much since really January 6th that I can think of is...
We weren't on air yet, January 6th.
Well, we talked about January 6th.
Oh, okay. True enough.
Excuse me. But outside of that, we've kind of stayed relatively quiet on the political front, and I think a lot of that has to do with the political front's been pretty quiet. We don't
more or less, yeah.
I don't get random tweets at any hours of the night. Nothing incendiary or inflammatory or polarizing. Just kind of silent. You get the press has not been at every single press session. Not a lot of clickbait until this past weekend. For the most part, there's been a couple things that come and go. The investigation, or if they're going to have the committee or whatever for
the commission
for January 6th. Again, it's June, and we're still trying to figure out if we're even going to have
at this point
a commission.
I think the Republicans did a pretty good job of stomping that out today during session. So it's probably not gonna happen.
So they met on Memorial Day?
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Nah, on Friday's session before.
Bear with her.
Before they closed for the holiday weekend. It's just really interesting to see how it's all playing out. And because I was reading an article maybe yesterday or the day before about how so much information has come out at like the individual trials and investigations of the different people who they arrested that day.
Mm-hmm.
But because there's not one central hub, we'll say that is looking at all the information and compiling all that information, the public, if you want to do your own due diligence to figure everything out
and put
the puzzle pieces together, obviously you're more than welcome to, with everything that is made available through public record. But without the formation of a committee to do so, no one is ever going to get a really full picture of what happened, why it happened, and why at this point there will be little to no repercussions for anyone who was involved.
Gotcha. I mean, at some point, Vice TV or somebody will do a doc on it, and
for sure,
I'm sure there'll be even more information that will come out. But on that note, President Biden on Friday released his new budgetary proposal.
$1 trillion.
$1.6 trillion.
Money don't mean nothing no more, man.
So the reason I use that as my initial segue point is the military is supposed to get a raise with that. So kind of good news going into Memorial Day weekend. The military is set to get a raise, assuming it passes. However, there are a bunch of other things in this bill. There is, you said money doesn't matter. There's a ton of spending. I've heard the spending alone would put us at debt levels that rival since we've been at World War II.
And that's the interesting portion of it. Like when you look at the stimulus packages and all the money that's been passed for that, and now this, I don't know what he says, because it's not stimulus, it's just
I think it's just a budget.
Just a spending budget.
Right.
And you look at those numbers, and it's like
they throw billion around like it's nothing.
Where is it coming from? Like I know people's taxes are crazy right now with all the incentives and things that were passed not only during what is his name, Trump, but also during Obama era. I couldn't think of his name. I wanted to call him his name and not something disrespectful.
That's not good of you. Especially with this on the radio in Florida.
Okay. You look at all of that money that's been spent over the last few years and the money that they're collecting from taxes and all of that. It's like, I understand that when I hold $1 in my hand, it's supposed to represent an amount.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at these numbers they throw around in these budgets, it's like money really doesn't really mean anything because they're always complaining about the budget, the deficit. But that thing, like you said, is exploding. Like they don't even have space for it on the little board anymore.
It's so big.
That's in DC.
Goodness gracious.
They don't even have space anymore. It's insane.
So that, opens the door for a lot of different discussions. So I try to, read articles on both sides and then some down the middle. And it seems like the thought process is spend a ton on infrastructure to create jobs, and then we will tax, the regular people at regular prices, tax the rich at a higher percentage, and by them having money and putting it back into the economy, that'll offset this astronomical debt number that we have.
Yeah, that's not how it ever works.
So that's the thing. That's very, very wishful thinking. And government historically is not efficient. We talked about even the committee that they haven't put together. Just blatant inefficiencies, money wasted.
All the people who have applied for the PPP loan and all the people who really needed the PPP loan, that within itself should let you know that this whole idea that just doling out all this money for quote unquote infrastructure is not going to work.
And so that is the interesting point, as some of these unemployment benefits are starting to expire or have been expiring. As President Biden has said that he's going to start cracking down on, if you're getting jobs and you're turning them down, then, there's going to be repercussions for that. It seems like, I don't know if it's the IRS or whatever government body is policing the PPP loans. They're starting to ramp up some of their initiatives to get the money back. So I think, to your point, the governors realized, we might have been a little too loose with these blank checks we were writing.
It's like, dang, I should apply for one when I had the chance.
I don't know if that was best. I mean, well, yours would have been legitimate.
Oh, for sure.
Some of these other people using their home addresses, and apparently it was only for payroll. It's not even like for business.
Technically, it's only for payroll.
Right.
But even if you're self-employed, you're an employee of one, and the things that you can use as write-offs, basically, for your business-related expenses. There's a lot of caveats, which is how people have been able to exploit the system and get this money.
I think the other thing is just the sheer numbers of people. Like, if hundreds of thousands or millions of people got these loans, they don't got hundreds of thousands or millions of people tracking these people down.
They don't. It could take years.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, it could take years for them to track down all the people who shouldn't have gotten it and get the money back in some way, shape, or form.
That legally got it, but then misused it. So then there's the whole other part of, okay.
Like an audit.
Right. So you misused it. There's money we're paying to audit you. And if the money gone, the money gone.
I mean, that's not true. Like, they take precautions against you. Like, they'll sue you. They'll put a lien against your business. There's ways that they can.
That's the thing. The people don't really got businesses.
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like, at worst case scenario, some of these people can end up going to jail for fraud.
Oh, I mean, we've seen a bunch of them starting to go to jail for fraud. But my point is, the money's gone.
Oh yeah, the money's gone.
I mean, I guess they can get the labor through prisons, but that's a whole different.
That's a whole different discussion.
So yeah, it's wild out here, and now we got another $1 trillion that's set to hit in October, I believe, is what they're targeting. Obviously, Congress is gonna have a busy summer, and I will touch on it just because it's in there. The Hyde Act and the abortion aspect of that and what that ramification has had is in there. I think Mitch McConnell said that that's dead, like that won't happen. And then there's some other stuff that Mitch McConnell has said,
he's gonna kill it on sight, basically.
Good luck passing some of this other stuff. So it'll be interesting to see. I guess that'll be kind of the highlight through the summer. And then we're going to get to October, and then it'll be another threats of government shutdowns and late midnight extensions, which is just taxing and exhausting, and it's super inefficient. Yes, that's a great word. So hopefully we can have some reason. I'm not super optimistic.
I never am.
But so back to the president and his promises. And so I'm just going to touch on a couple that were important to me. You can feel free to add in the ones that you like. But by all accounts, it was blatantly obvious black people won Joe Biden the election. Detroit, Michigan was big, Wisconsin, Milwaukee
Atlanta,
area.
That whole area.
That was the most obvious. I think that's got more acclaim than some of the other areas. Pennsylvania was another one, Philadelphia, turning that. So, and then obviously, I think we shouted out before, but again, Stacey Abrams and everything she did in Atlanta, specifically,
in Atlanta
Georgia,
specifically, but
and
across the country.
And that's the thing. It wasn't a all right, the vote's in 2 weeks or 2 months, let's start. Like, it started years ago. And the infrastructure and the grassroots campaign, so it can be done. And shout out to all of them for doing it. With that being said, I'm still waiting on reparations.
TikTok.
I'm still waiting on some kind of police reform, as we are reminded and every day. And I will take complete blame for this. And I think we might have talked about it on here. I might have talked about it with someone else. But what happens when you get to a point where you just get numb to it? And I'm kind of at the point where, like, I see these videos, they pop up on Instagram, and I haven't watched. There's been like 2 or 3 recently, and I'm just like, I already know how it ends. I just don't want to watch it again.
Yeah, I think I told you about the one I stumbled up on Instagram. Like, I thought I was watching a news report about something, but then they showed, like, it was awful. But then, you know, it starts, and I just couldn't take my eyes away. And I just don't understand. I don't understand why it's so difficult to see the problem and address the problem.
I think that's it, though. It's easy to see it. Everybody saw it. They won't address it. And they killed the last administration for not addressing it, and in a lot of ways inciting it the opposite way. And I would say this administration has not championed police per se, but they've been super silent. And
that's what pisses me off the most, because Vice President Harris, I
haven't heard nothing.
And let me tone that down a little bit. I have not heard nearly as much as I would have wanted to for the way that she campaigned and all the pretty things she said during the campaign trail and while she was trying to get elected and all of that. And then what was the comment a few weeks ago? America's not racist, or whatever it was she said. Like, the idea that this is where we are, like the fact that they can't even get the Emmett Till bill passed. Like, I don't understand. Or
the George Floyd bill, when they just convicted the guy that murdered George Floyd. Like, Emmett Till happened a long time ago. You can try and suppress that. George Floyd just happened. We just had the 1-year anniversary.
I don't understand why passing an anti-lynching bill, because that's what it is. That's what it is. It's so difficult in 2021. 2021, man, like, that should just be a no-brainer. Yet the anti-Asian hate bill got passed like that.
And so I had that in the notes, and then I took it out. But I'm with you, like, and that to me, I don't want to jump there, but we'll come back to that. I don't understand, and I saw that President Biden just met with the Congressional Black Caucus, and I read some of the excerpts, and we definitely have to do something about policing in this country. But you ain't doing nothing. And
this might sound off or whatever. Like, I've been to a lot of the Congressional Black Caucus, like, events, just things over there, especially when I was living in DC and knew so many people who worked on the Hill. Like, the parties used to be lit when the CBC parties. But I would also go to, like, listen to the policy hearings and all of that. And they talk a great game. And these are people who are in positions where they can affect change. But still, somewhere there is a disconnect where it just continually falls short of something actually happening. And I think I've said this before on the podcast, I'm just really tired of listening to politicians politicking. Like, they get on stage and on these commercials and they say all this stuff, but then when it comes to doing what they said they were going to do, and it's like it never happens.
And this last election cycle, we had a bunch of women, we had a bunch of minorities win. And I'm just like like you said, that Asian hate bill, I don't know where it came from, but that thing came up and got passed easy. Like, no reservations, no long debates, no filibustering, like, easy. And I don't know all the nuances of it or how, adept it is at holding people responsible, but I know it got passed. And I don't understand how, and I'm gonna put it on this, and this is part of where this podcast is gonna go from my perspective. I don't know how black people are allowing that to happen. Black people that are in Congress, that are voting on these bills, how do y'all keep voting on bills without getting y'all bills passed? Or are y'all that weak that y'all are not writing enough bills to get them passed? You are not shaking the right hands. You're not making the right deals. You're not working across the aisle. Y'all need to get stuff done. I am so sick and tired, and we were going to get to blacks voting Democrat, but I am so sick and tired of voting for people that say they're for me and then they get in position and don't do it. And it's one thing when it's a white person,
but
it
it's
is
different
when it's a black person.
Mm-hmm.
And there is way too many black people that we didn't recently elected that got elected off the strength of, and you sent me something about the girl in Virginia and her experiences, and she can understand the poor because she was one of the poor, and all that's in their bio. And I looked up, remember the Lift Every Voice?
Mm-hmm.
What the heck happened to Lift Every Voice? Because that was something that came out as soon as Trump put out his platinum plan or whatever that thing was he put out. Lift Every Voice came out, and it was 60 pages of in-depth analysis and all the things that they were going to do. It wasn't just the 3 pages that Trump put out, and I ain't heard nothing about it since. And I am sick and tired of having to deal with this stuff on a regular basis and people just twiddling their thumbs or passing a bunch of marijuana bills that's supposed to make things better. That ain't it. The only reason y'all passing these marijuana bills is because white people getting rich off of it.
I was gonna say, because they're not doing that for black folks. Like
they should be taking the black people that you locked up for drugs and putting them in these businesses. You don't maybe not make them a CEO, but they should be general managers. They know how the stuff works. They know how the system works. They should be employed in that industry because they've proven they can do the job and they're more than qualified.
But instead, they're being isolated out of any real money growing potential from these positions.
Right, because if you get out and you're a felon, you can't get any licensing,
permits, anything.
Or the money and capital that it takes to start it is ridiculous. So you have to have some kind of backers, and guess what the backers are? White people.
And a lot of times they don't do the whole working with felon thing. It's all convoluted and very intricate and dumb at the same time.
And I know we're early, and I don't know who I was listening. So this is not, when I say white people, I'm not talking about all white people. Because
clarification.
There are a number of white people. I actually had a conversation with my my manager last week, and it was an in-depth conversation. And she listened, and it was really dope. And there are more people out there like her.
For what it's worth, there are more people out there who are allies than aren't.
That's not true.
I think the problem is...
You think there are more people that ally with black people than are against black people? If that was the case, bills would pass.
I mean regular people, not people in the house.
I don't think that either. I think there's a bunch of regular white people that are cool with black people as long as black people don't threaten their status. And as soon as black people begin to threaten their jobs or begin to overpopulate their sense of a community and entitlement, they got an issue. We live in a county right now that if we started moving into the Augustines and all these other places and we were the predominants playing our music and acting how we want to act and be free, white people would have a problem.
This is true.
Regular white people. Regular white people like black people because we entertain them. But when it start costing them something, their tone changes.
It's when you get the Karens of the world.
You get the Karens. And yes, I'm calling y'all Karens because that's what y'all are.
Tell them how you really feel.
I do. Just exhausting dealing with it.
Sip of water?
No, I'm good right now. So the next part that is also important to me is since we haven't gotten any real police reform at all, and people criticize the last administration for passing a weak one, but they passed something. We got 2 other issues for me. Actually, no, it's 3 other issues. So, we have a gas spike, which initially I thought was a pipeline issue.
Yeah, temporary thing.
Yeah, it's not. And it's not isolated to where we're at. I was reading, and gas is at a 7-year high. I remember long ago when it was $3 and $4 and close to $5 in like inner cities for gas, and then it wasn't, and it was great, and it got down to like $2 or something. It was under $2 at one point, and so we have rising inflation because of all the money that's been pumped into the economy. So gas has gone up. Everything else is going up, but we still ain't got the minimum wage raised.
Which is, and I think it's really interesting, especially bringing up the fact that people's unemployment benefits are getting ready to start changing, and the pressure people are putting on folks to go back to work. And it's like, there's 2 sides of it, because I understand, like, you look at how much money you're making currently on unemployment, and it's like, why would I go back, bust my butt for
less money
and benefits, health insurance benefits or whatever, if you had them, that's still costing you money. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the purpose of that? Why would I do that when, as of right now, I have a lot of freedom to do other things that could potentially make me more money?
Right, and I saw a brief article today that a lady used her, I think it was the first stimulus was $1,200.
Yeah.
$1,200 stimulus to turn it into a $1.3 million business. So, black woman, shout out to her.
Yay.
And there's more stories like that. But if I'm a hustler and I like to hustle, like you said, like before, when you got fired or laid off, unemployment was a percentage of your salary.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it still is. Technically, it still is. The base of your unemployment is whatever percentage you were of what you were making before. But because of the stimulus bills and all of that, it is higher. Right.
So in a number of cases, I don't know the numbers, so I won't say a lot more. But in a number of cases, people are legitimately making more money than they were working. So I'm just going to give it to you straight, America. Most everyone would sit at home if they were making more money than they were getting up working 40 hours a week at a job they hate, working for people that don't value them and treat them like crap. So I can sit at home, do my side business, whether it's flipping shoes, whether it's selling drugs, whether it's selling myself, whether it's investing in crypto, whether it's whatever your hustle is. The scammers be scamming. So whatever that hustle is, if I can allow the government to fund my business and I can use my time, effort, and energy there versus going to a job making less money and paying taxes on that money, I'm going to sit at home. Like, that's not a convoluted situation.
You can even opt for them to take taxes out of the unemployment so that you don't have to pay it back later on when it's time to file taxes.
Better.
So it's like, even because there are a lot of people that go, well, there are tax ramifications of them still sitting at home on unemployment. Yeah, a lot of people do actually have the taxes taken out for them because they give you that option.
And, you kick the can down the road till you have to pay it. So it just, the system at this point is flawed. And the part that sucks is there's going to become a harsh reality for either the government that we can't stop giving the people money, or the people that's been getting the money are going to have to go back. It's like steak and spam. So you've been eating steak all this time, and now you got to go back and take spam. That's going to be a hard adjustment for a lot of people to go back to jobs they didn't want in the first place, making less money than they were, and that's just kind of the reality of it. Or you could raise the minimum wage which would incentivize people to go back to those jobs, because we've been out to eat and I've been a lot of places and cashiers don't be there, servers don't be there. When I understand in a lot of places, bartenders aren't there. Those types of jobs, people don't want them.
They're vacant, and it's reflecting, it's reflecting everywhere. It's like grocery stores, like the people who, and it's just funny because this is just how America is. You laugh at these people, you don't, if you want to earn a living wage, then get a better job. But somebody's got to do those jobs, 100%. Regardless of how you might feel about the job, whether you need the job or not. Somebody's got to work those jobs.
And do it at a reasonably high level.
Right. And so the idea to ask someone to work 3 jobs to make ends meet, still living paycheck to paycheck, because a lot of times these are lower income families. So both parents or single parent is working multiple jobs to cover all the expenses, and the fact that they feel like they deserve to work one job that can cover the majority of their expenses. Like, I just don't understand why people don't get that.
And so a lot of times the pushback is, and I actually heard this on the JVP recently, is if you raise the minimum wage, then everybody's wage gets raised. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Where it should stop is, once you get to a certain level where you live a easygoing life, so to speak, financially, you don't need a raise.
I mean, at that point, it's the same as like the way that they were doing the stimulus checks. The stimulus checks were supposed to go to the people in the highest need of said money. And then by the time you get to people who are making 3, 4, 5, 6 figures, they don't need that money. So they don't get that money. I'm sure there's more than a comprehensive way for them to evaluate the way that minimum wage currently works and set it so that it makes sense across the country for all the states to raise it to that minimum wage. And then other states can adjust accordingly, higher. And I think because the way it's federal, like they have a federal minimum wage, and then the states are allowed to be, I think, $2 below it, but nothing lower than.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
I think, I'm not positive. And then obviously you can go as high as you want above it. So it's like, I just don't understand, especially when you're talking about these larger corporations. Now, smaller mom and pop businesses, I get how that could be a crunch, but there are tax incentives for all of that.
And that's where this 1.6 trillion should be going, to offset all the mom and pops that would lose their employees to bigger corporations that can pay the federal or the mandatory minimum wage. So make it beneficial so that they can still compete, because you need to have competition and you want the quality of that in those environments. But yeah, I don't know why we still haven't got there. I haven't heard it talked about since. And that kind of leads to the next point of student loan debt. In so many words, I've actually heard them say it's not going to happen.
No.
Eliminating that.
It's not.
So,
and the fact that people really thought that it was going to, like, I know that I believe things that I hear politicians say full-heartedly sometimes, but like when they were saying, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of student loan debt, no, they're not. They were never going to. That was never going to be a thing. Like, it was just something that, because millennials are crushed by student loan debt and would love the idea that some way, somehow it could just all be gone. Like, that they were never going to do that.
And as someone who graduated college in 2011, it's 2021, and still got a bunch of student loan. Now I've been fortunate enough to have some assistance with that. And obviously the last year or so, I think it's been on hold, but it still exists. And that's crippling to young millennials with families that trying to buy houses or, buy cars and
But
invest
somehow we
their
make
money.
it work, man.
Some of us, a lot of us, but not all of us.
True enough.
And so, yeah, just kind of the state of this country and the way in which it's been functioning really since its existence. For the sake of this discussion, I'm going to go back to since I've been alive and seen in the generations I've seen. And so for me, and that goes like to my grandparents who maybe 70 or 80 now, I think, kind of across the board. And for the most part, in that lifespan, the ideology, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is black people vote Democrat. And I definitely know that was in my mom's era. So that's, people in the last 50 years. And I'm pretty sure it extended beyond that. And it may even go back further than that. I don't know specifically. But this concept, and if I go there and say, you know what, black people should vote Democrat. I don't agree with that. But if I go there and say since the Civil Rights Act was passed, and I look at today, and we just talked about in 2021 some of the things we are still dealing with, why would I still vote the same way?
Mm-hmm.
Now, from what I understand and from what I'm told, and I try to educate myself on a regular basis, Republicans definitely don't care about black people. George Bush didn't care about black people. President Trump was a racist. And those things could be true. But I'm still watching black people get murdered in the streets. I am watching black, light-skinned, unassuming, very kind-looking individuals get spit at and spit on as soon as...
talking about Trey Young.
Yeah. As soon as they open the stands back up. Trey Young, for those of you who don't know, and I'll have a picture up for the YouTube audience, looks like the sweetest, nicest guy.
He does, doesn't he?
If you've heard this man talk, he is not aggressive. There is little to no bass in his voice, but he can bawl.
Yeah.
And as soon as they open Madison Square Garden up, these fairly well-to-do people, because they're sitting right behind 50 Cent and Cuban Link, and they're close enough to spit on the player, decided, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I think.
For whatever reason. And then I guess, like, obviously, I watch basketball, I watch sports. I get passionate. I yell at the TV. I say things. I don't mean for people to break their ankles in real life. Like, I say stuff. I don't even understand how you fix your mouth to spit on someone that you're not even having an actual altercation with.
They've done nothing to you.
Exactly. Like, I've seen people get spit on in the heat of an argument and all that, and that is super disrespectful.
Super.
But to spit on someone just because they're beating your team, I don't even understand what logic is in your mind that makes that any way, shape, or form okay. But he did it. And then he's just like, yeah, I'm going to sit back down in my seat and enjoy the rest of this game.
Like that was cool.
Like, it was cool. Meanwhile, 50's like, I don't understand what happened. And Cuban Link is like, what the freak, all over my designer. And it's like, how? How is that a thing? And it's not just that. And there have been many instances where players, not players.
We had 3 in one night. Because Russell Westbrook, his situation happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then John Morant's family, went through it. And the one quote, and I'll say it, is the guy said, I wish I had a nickel so I could put it in your back so you could dance for me. Like, that's what we're doing in 2021. And this is an older gentleman. So he's been through the traumatic experience of civil rights and integration and segregation and all that was. And you thought that was cool to say to them because their son is a baller. You thought it was okay to tell his wife, F you, call it a B word. Like, that's the mentality that, for
It's
what it's
still
worth,
alive
that
and
black
well.
people voting for Democrats, and that's where we're at. So, I've pushed against it for a while, but now that we have this platform, I don't get it. What is it gaining us? They keep saying go vote, and I'm not advocating for not voting because you definitely don't get anything solved that way. But what is voting getting us? And you can try and throw out and research some of these minuscule bills, but it ain't changing the quality of life for black people in this country. And in a lot of ways, given the knowledge and information that we have, it's almost worse. Because it's no longer that it's ignorance. It is blatant people holding fast to their racist beliefs and tendencies. And it's other people that are in position that simply are refusing to do anything about it. And that, to me, is almost more troubling than what it was back then. Go ahead.
So, I think the biggest part about the last administration is that he was able to rile up people who felt a way about the way that the country was going. Regardless of whether you thought Donald Trump was racist, a lot of the people who tended to be at his rallies, who tended to be his spokespeople, the stuff that they said was racist. The things, the views, the policies they wanted passed were racist. So regardless of whether you believe Donald Trump himself was racist or not, he emboldened that faction, which we as black people, we have always known that they were still out there. I've seen, like, I grew up in a place where the Confederate flag is everywhere. Like, I went to school with kids who wore the Confederate flag, like it was, like proudly, not understanding like how they view that flag.
I mean, there was an understanding. They just didn't care.
No. Like, I mean, not understanding why they view it the way they do.
Gotcha.
And I'm a fairly well-read person. I've taken a lot of time to look into our history and look at the things that have shaped us as a nation where we are today. And while I disagree with you about the bills that have been passed that benefit us, because in some ways I do agree with you, but I would not sit here and say that it's worse. To say that we're worse off now than we were 60 years ago is an exaggeration. Because 60 years ago, you could still get hung for whistling at a white woman.
You do realize within the last year they were hanging people.
I'm not saying that it doesn't still happen. I'm saying that if it happens now and your case makes it to court and all of that, those people can be convicted and put in jail.
Arbery, if there was no video, had he not snitched on himself, Ahmaud Arbery's killers would have walked.
So again, I understand the optics of how it looks, but at the same time, to say that we're worse off, I'm not going to say it's an exaggeration. I'm just going to say that I don't think that's true, because worse off is what people went through to get us to where we are now. Do I agree that we're far enough? No. Because cases like Ahmaud Arbery, because Botham Jean, like there are too many situations where black people are dying and the people who are killing them are not being held accountable. Period. There's nothing that anyone can say that's going to make that okay. But I remember a day, well, I don't remember personally, like I know where we have come from. We still have far to go, but we're not there anymore.
So I'll provide more context to my statement. And maybe I wasn't clear. So on its face, do I feel like racism is as overt as it was? Are they hosing us down in the streets? Are they? Well, they are still sicking dogs on us. Are there whites only signs everywhere? No. But my perspective is this: we have kids. When my kid throws my phone or does something wrong right now, they're 19 months. It's like, there was ignorance there. Or to them, it seemed right. At that time, that was the right thing to do. I have a phone, I'm playing, I'm throwing it. I get rid of the phone, I throw it, whatever. Naturally, I'm still upset because you threw my phone.
Yeah.
Fast forward. So now we've raised these kids. We've educated these kids. We've made it very clear that, hey, throwing people's phones is wrong. So when that same kid is now 18, 19, 20 years old, and his form of playing is throwing my phone, it's worse for me. Because you now know better and you know that you shouldn't do that. But you're choosing to do it anyway. My point in what I was trying to say is today, the knowledge gap isn't there. It's not just okay to be racist. Like, culturally, we're super sensitive. So I believe the people today, and I would say even when we went to high school, I think there was a lot of ignorance in a lot of them, what they wore and what they said and what they did. Today, that's not an excuse.
Yeah.
Not at all. When our kids are in high school, they will be well aware of how you should treat people of different colors. Now, I think they will still treat them poorly, but the education is there, the history. I didn't learn about the Tulsa massacre in high school. I didn't learn about the burning of, not in the detail.
Not in depth, no.
Like, okay. It was a
little blurb.
It was a sub-bullet on the bottom of a history book. I learned a ton about Abraham Lincoln. I didn't understand, how slavery and why slavery ended in the economic impact, or when we heard about the Buffalo Soldiers, but we didn't hear about when they came back from the war, how they retreated. Not in detail. Now we have a video, we have pictures, we've had movies, we got documentaries, we got tons of information expressing how corrupt and how racist this country has been. Mm-hmm. And even with all that, the black vice president can say this country is not racist. That to me is more problematic than some old white man in the 60s saying something racist. For me, it's worse. Because there's an education level, and now you're just making a mockery of it.
Yeah.
That's my point when I say I think it's worse today, because there's plenty of education and people still choose to be the way they are.
Okay, and I accept that. Now that you've explained it that way, that makes more sense than just the blanket statement that you made before.
You can play it back. I didn't go into as much detail, but I did preface it a certain way.
You did.
That's fine.
It's cool. I understand now, babe. No, I completely agree with you. Ignorance is not bliss in this situation. And, obviously to run it back to the Stop Asian Hate, that whole movement. And I won't even go there. You guys know we like to watch TV. We watch a lot of TV. And fortunately right now there's a lot of really good TV on. If you have not checked out Godfather of Harlem, do yourself a favor, binge it, and let us know how much you love us for recommending the show.
Thanks.
Because it is amazing. Forrest Whitaker needs to get some flowers for this one because he is doing an amazing job playing Bumpy Johnson. But not only that, they are telling the story of him. Well, I guess because they have not introduced Muhammad Ali's character, but the show is taking place in 64, 65, and so we're coming up on when Malcolm X, unfortunately, is assassinated.
And real quick, I thought Malcolm X did go to Florida for the fight.
He did.
So that was for Muhammad Ali.
Mm-hmm.
You said they hadn't introduced his character.
But Muhammad Ali is on the show.
Right.
I forgot, my bad. So they have introduced him on, I'm sorry, because I just don't want to get this actor's name wrong.
Should have just done Godfather.
I know. Being played by Malcolm X is being played by Nigel Thatch. He is doing an amazing job. Portraying such a strong figure in history. I will be completely honest, like, I've read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I've also read other biographies about Malcolm X. But I never took the time to go back and read any of his speeches or anything like that for myself. I have, since we started watching this show, because there were a lot of things, and then especially after One Night in Miami, watching that, there are a lot of things that there were gaps for me in between when he decided to leave the nation to his assassination. And one of the most pivotal parts for me and the message that he began to really harp on was the fact that Black people need to understand the power of their vote. And he was saying this in 64, 65, like, to understand how important it is that we vote and who we vote for is really, personally, I think the key to understanding how effective we can be in politics. Malcolm X said in a very famous speech, they pander to us, they do their song and dance when it's time for election, but as soon as they get elected, you never see them again until it's the next election cycle. And that should bother us all. Like, whether you're voting, like, if you're voting Democrat, you're obviously voting Democrat for a reason. You're voting Democrat because you believe that the Democratic candidate that you're voting for is representing you and is going into office and taking into consideration the things that you find important. But here we are, and the things that we find most important continually get pushed to the bottom of the barrel. And at this point, I told Ray this when during this last election cycle, I didn't like Joe Biden. I didn't like Kamala Harris. Like, I would have been much happier. I liked Pete Buttigieg. I liked some of Andrew Yang's ideas. I liked Elizabeth Warren. I wanted to say Warner. I was not super happy. But then at the same time, like, I wasn't super happy with a lot of the candidates. And in my mind, I'm like, this country has how many billions of people? And this is the best batch. Millions of people. This country has millions of people. Millions of people, and I guess the better way to phrase it is thousands of politicians, people who are politically aimed, who want to make a difference in this world, all of that good stuff. And this batch of politicians was the best of all of that. And okay, fine. We'll play devil's advocate. Across the board, a lot of the things that they campaigned on, I agreed with. So I bit the bullet and I voted Democrat because I was not voting for Donald Trump. And that's just how I feel. I was not doing that. But being the person that I am, I do recognize that Donald Trump did pass some things while he was in office that benefited my family. They benefited us financially. They benefited us as Christians. Like, it helped us. So to completely gloss over that is a little disrespectful. But overall, I did not like the tone that he was bringing out in the country. And there were other things that he stood for that I didn't, which is what ultimately made me choose to not vote for him. But the idea that the next time the election cycle comes around, I'm voting for people who have a proven track record of getting in office and doing what they say they're going to do. I'm not just going to toe the party line anymore, because at this point in 2021 and beyond, it doesn't make sense for us, in my personal opinion.
No, I'm not going to argue with you. I think that's been the case for a while. And that brings me to what I was saying earlier as far as, like, ignorance being a thing. Up until probably the last 5, maybe 10 years, I thought Malcolm X was the bad guy. Like, I was always taught.
Wait. What?
I was always taught Malcolm X was the bad guy. He was violent. He was the menace. Martin Luther King was the good guy. Malcolm X was the bad guy. That's how I've always been educated. That's what I've always been taught. The Nation of Islam was violent.
Didn't you take any Black History Studies classes in college?
Yeah, I took an intro to African American Studies, but I'm not talking about that. Everybody don't go to college.
True enough. I mean, but even still, like, didn't you watch? And again, this is my own ignorance, maybe. I feel like everybody's seen at least Malcolm X, Denzel portraying Malcolm X.
I think you are missing it. So, yes, I'm talking education. The context of our conversation was ignorance.
Yeah.
You're talking about a movie versus what I'm taught from elementary, middle, and high school, and in a lot of classes, college classes. Like, I took an intro to African American Studies class, great class. It was still taught by a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she was dope, but it was taught by a white woman. So, generally speaking, if you went out today and asked a white person, what do you think of Malcolm X? They're probably not going to tell you something super positive or what he was really talking about.
True enough. I get what you're saying.
For the most part, and I can't really remember really at all being educated on who Fred Hampton was.
No, because they didn't.
So that's my point.
They educated on the Black Panther Party, but that was also in an extremely negative light.
Black Panthers and Malcolm X were gun-toting, by any means necessary, violent people. Martin Luther King, nice, peaceful protesting, no violence, hug them,
turn the other cheek,
all that. What they don't tell you is that at the end of both of their lives, their ideas aligned a lot more than they did when they first started. And then they didn't talk about Fred Hampton's ideals and really what the Black Panther Party stood for and unifying all poor people.
Rainbow Coalition, yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about. Not just you didn't know who Malcolm X was? Like, no, it's bigger than that. It was the point I was trying to make. But that's our country. But that's no longer an excuse. Our children and even teenagers today, they have a different perspective. They have TV shows. They have One Night in Miami. They have a bunch of other documentaries that go into more detail that's more widely available. Like, you can stream stuff from anywhere you have internet connection.
Yeah.
The internet allows you to research in ways that we didn't have. Like, dial-up wasn't it. Like, I remember when DSL was a huge thing. Like,
we always had pretty good internet. And
at what age?
I think from the time I was about 12. But that's because my stepdad was IT. So he built like our network in our house and all of that. So
we both grew up in rather affluent areas. That's not the case for everyone. Yes. Majority of this country. I think even where we live at, we lose touch on life in, rural Kentucky, rural Tennessee, rural Missouri. Like, there's black people there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can assure you their education system is very different in how things are taught. How things are taught in the South. I was watching the pod the other day, and they said the word slavery has been taken out of textbooks in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's involuntary servanthood or something like that. Servitude.
Yeah.
So, and then for what it's worth, a criticism of President Trump for sure was, I forget, the 1965 act, whatever he was trying to pass, to whitewash our history of the violence towards black people, which is absurd. But they tried it. So yeah, it's just been a lot, and I put a lot of some of this conversation on white people being better. But like you said, this next election cycle, I gotta vote different. I gotta look at more than what I've previously looked at. And that goes for all of us. I've said it before, and I'm willing to say it again. if it can't get done through legislation, we got to do something. At some point, we got to say, enough is enough. And cops keep getting off. Camera, no camera. Witness, no witness. Like, it's not changing at nearly enough of the rate. And I said it when it first happened. As soon as George Floyd happened, cops ramped it up. And some of the stuff that's happened has been as or more egregious than what happened to George Floyd. And they don't care. I did end up watching a video the other day where they strip searched this teenage boy. And they said there was drugs on him, and literally in broad daylight out in public, pulled his pants down and is feeling on a child for contraband. In public, in broad daylight.
Oh, yeah.
On his video camera.
I didn't see that, but I did read about it. The same as the man, they thought it was drugs, but it turned out to be his daughter's ashes.
I saw that too.
Like, that was crazy.
Tested it, and then I think they tried to say it came back as positive or some bullcrap. And so I'm just like, enough is enough. And we can keep doing what we've been doing, but history would tell us if you keep doing the same thing, getting the same result, that's insanity. And this all-out blacks voting Democrat thing is becoming insane. This idea that we're going to legislate police reform is becoming insane. Like, there's enough education, there's enough knowledge. At a certain point, people just aren't doing it because they don't want to do it. And
that's not okay.
It's not okay. But then what do? White people showed us what they do. January 6th. Something that was right. Like, the election wasn't stolen from them. But even in the fact that they thought that it was,
they were willing to fight for it.
They were willing to fight and die for it. And you go back to the Boston Tea Party, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, what we did, the Trail of Tears. We've seen what white people do when they want something done. And it ain't just in this country. They drive on the wrong side of the road in the Caribbean for a reason.
What are you talking about?
That's because the British Empire ran it.
Oh, okay.
Can you keep up, man?
I was really confused. Like, that was out of nowhere. They drive on the wrong side of the road.
That was
for a reason.
A lighthearted example of white influence in areas where white people wasn't at.
I mean, it's colonialism. That's it's.
Call it whatever nice title you want. It's white people. White people conquer where they go. We watched Outlander. We watched Last Kingdom. We watched all this stuff. They will kill each other, and they will definitely kill people that don't look like them for their cause. And I really hope we never have to get to that point. But the blueprint to domination is available to us. And we see it. And so we got to figure out what we're going to do. Are we going to be the forgiving people that when an Asian parlor gets shot up, black people ride for Asian people? When 2 administrations ago, when a black man got in office, he advocated and did more for the LGBTQ community than any president I think ever has. And I'm not going to kill him for it. That was important to him, and he got it done. And black people supported that and still support it to this day. And I'm not saying that they don't support us. But what I'm saying is our bills ain't getting passed like their bills did. The Asian bill got passed, our bills still haven't. Like, the DACA program, and if I'm wrong, correct me, is about immigrants typically from like Central or South American countries, or like Mexico and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that got passed, which isn't targeting black people because we're already here. That's a way for people that come here illegally get a pathway to citizenship, get the education to better their lives. And you know what they do with that money? Send it back. I know a number of, I don't want to use the right word. Hispanic is a safe word?
Okay. That's a safe word.
Hispanic people, and they pull their money together and they send it back to take care of at home.
Asians, a lot of Asian families do the same thing. I mean, that's how they start businesses here. To my knowledge, I have been told that a lot of times that's how they'll start businesses here. A lot of the Asian store owners will all pull their money together, and then when the lottery comes up and it's a certain family's turn, they give the money to that said family so that family can come in and start a business, or they send it back home so they can sponsor a family to come with their visas and all sorts of things.
Right. So the difference between the two, for me, is I don't see a ton of Mexican stores in black neighborhoods, but I see a bunch of Asian ones. And that's problematic for me because, like you said, that money ain't staying in it's helping tear down our community while making them rich, and they're not living in our community. And that's on us. That is now on us. We as black people recognize it. And we still patron those places. And I've been in a bunch of Asian stores and they followed me around and judged me from the second I walked in their store. They moved into my neighborhood, into my environment, take my money, and then profile me when I'm in their store about to give them my money. And we keep doing it.
We do. A lot of people, I have tried a lot more, especially in the last year or so, to shop black, period. But then when you start looking at the supply chain, somewhere in there, a lot of times there's Asian people. Right now, I'm researching on how to start a hairline, but unfortunately, unless I take a trip over to India somewhere, I'm gonna have to go through someone else who does not look like me and who, they just don't look like me, so that I can get a direct connect. And even when you talk to, again, and I have a clothing line, when I'm talking to vendors, a lot of those vendors, they're not black. When I'm looking at materials, when I'm trying, just sourcing things, a lot of times they're not black. And you want to do more to support black businesses. You want to do more to patron black businesses. But a lot of times, somewhere down the line, it's not a black person.
Agreed. I do still think we need to start actually this shirt. Shout out to Randy. I can't think of his Instagram. Yeah, the Think Tank podcast. Shout out to them for the clothing and all the things that he's doing and helping raise awareness for different local black businesses and entrepreneurs. So shout out to him. So I do want to wrap up, and we got to get a clock because I have no idea where we're at on time.
I think we're a little over.
Yeah. So really quickly, the other piece to this is black forgiveness. And I don't know where this comes from. I'm not going to say that. I believe it comes from the trauma of slavery within our culture, within our people. But black people always have to be the forgiven people. We have been slaughtered, we have been raped, we have been castrated, we have been lynched, we have been disproportionately impacted, disenfranchised. We've had our cities burned, we've had our women and children raped and murdered. We have had the police called on us, just false. We talk about the Central Park woman and the bird watcher. And for some reason, we always want to forgive people. We always want to take the higher road. And I am a religious person, and Jesus is my Lord and Savior. So I'm all for forgiveness. But there has to come a point where we start holding people accountable. And when I found out shortly thereafter where she called the police on the man in the park, and I wish I had their names and I don't, he didn't press charges. Trey Young, when they talked to him, he didn't want to press charges. But when Ron Artest and him ran up in the stands,
oh yeah,
they sued. When Russell Westbrook, when they were verbally abusing him, that lawsuit just got thrown out for $100 million.
$100 million for defamation.
Because you were being, racist. White people don't give us anywhere near the level of gravity or Grace, that's a better word. But we always feel like we got to give everybody else this grace. And they always use it and take advantage. Not always. Way too often they use it to take advantage of us.
I think my biggest, I can't believe it. The woman who killed Botham Jean, the police officer.
Amber Geiger.
There you go. For not just the judge, but the family of Botham, the attorneys in the room, for everybody to basically every Black person in the courtroom to come and embrace this woman after
she
murdered Botham. And obviously, the case went how it went. It was tried in the public opinion, but by all accounts, she knew what she was doing.
100%.
And she still acted the way that she did, off duty, just a life lost. But to embrace this woman, and they said because she showed remorse and that you have to forgive so that you can move on, and forgiving is for the living and all of that. I'm not hugging you. I'm not. I'll accept your apology because I need to, and it's to help me process. But we are never going to be kumbaya, buddy. I'm going to write you while you're in jail. None of that. You spit on me and call me a racist thing, and this isn't revenge. I'm just going to do whatever is legally within my rights to do to make you look dumb.
To the fullest extent.
To the fullest extent. I refuse to be disrespected on a racial level, and then for whatever reason, it's just, I'm gonna then, because you were punished, then turn around and treat you like you my bestie? No. And we need to stop doing that, because to an extent, it's like we keep letting the apology happens after the dumb thing happens, and the apology is supposed to make the ignorance that was displayed okay. And it doesn't. It doesn't take that guilt or that feeling of shame or whatever the repercussions of them being ignorant away from you.
And I think the telling part of that example, and I'm glad you brought that up, she asked to get out early.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's trying to get out like now. She got 10 years, which was too light in my opinion. It's been like 2.
And some change, yeah.
And she's trying to get out. So, you want to talk about real remorse? He's never coming back. You did 2 and some change, and now you're trying to get out. Like, no. You didn't care. You knew what you was doing, and it wasn't good enough that you only got 10. Because had that been reversed, and had he showed up in her apartment and shot her, ain't no way he's getting 10. Mm-hmm. He probably doesn't get to trial. But he definitely wasn't getting 10. And so not even that. They embrace you in that way, and then a year or 2 later, you start putting paperwork to try and get out. That's just the epitome of their privilege.
It's silly.
And how little they think of us. And we are, again, I'm going to start putting it on us. We are allowing this to happen. Because we keep fostering and enabling this behavior. Which is why Derek Chauvin could sit there when he was found guilty
with the stuck face
and be just shocked. Like, he was legitimately shocked. Like, I can't believe this actually happened, even though everybody around the world saw that you clearly murdered that man. But a part of that is now becoming us and our ability to forgive, and not only forgive, but try and console them when they are beating us and killing us like it's nothing. And I'm not here for it. So that's all I got. And if we're over time, you know, we're really just for the radio aspect. Like, I can be as long as we want. But we do want to be respectful of that. But yeah, I just felt it was necessary with the state of the country going on, and it's every day. It's every day that we are reminded, me personally as a black man, of that I'm black, and that the world doesn't really care. Politicians certainly don't. The president doesn't. I don't care what y'all say. If he wanted something passed, he would have got it passed for us. And he hasn't. He had his 100 days, and the 3 biggest highlights that I remember, none of them have gotten done. Like I said, feel free to look up that Lift Every Voice.
It was a really good plan.
Yeah. And my issue was it was way too much of a plan to ever get impacted or enacted. That's why I like the other plan, because it was 2 or 3 pages. We might can get something out of those 2 or 3 pages, but ain't nobody reading all them pages. Not for black people. But we love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Still haven't got a good outro, just like she still can't remember our social media names. So we will both we both have work to do on that. Again, we appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe on our YouTube, all of our social media platforms. Let's keep running these numbers up. Let's keep expanding our voice, and can't wait to hear from y'all. Take care.